Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. Not a pleasure to talk about the topic, but it's something that we need to do. You know, it's quite amazing that with everything going on in terms of the situations in families, the children grow up very, very quickly, way too quickly. I'm reminded of the story of two 5-year-olds, and one 5-year-old tells the other 5-year-old, you know, there was a big fight in my house the other day. And the other 5-year-old says, really? What happened? So the other one says, well, my mother found a contraceptive on the veranda. And the other 5-year-old says, really? What's a veranda? I don't know why you're laughing, it's a true story. Anyway, what I'm going to do is just spend, as we just said, a bit of time in terms of evaluation. Problems that we have with evaluating is that, unfortunately, there are a lot of individuals that do the evaluations, but really do not do it thoroughly or properly. They know the difference, possibly, of estrangement and alienation, and that's about it. But in terms of what the children know, what they've been told, how they've been dealt with, is extremely important. Please understand that there are many themes, as Claywar and Rivlin, as was said before, have found. But with each of these themes, we could do a thorough and comprehensive assessment by asking questions on each of the themes. Now, I'm starting off with a judgment by a Judge Gomri, John Gomri. He wrote, hatred is not an emotion that comes naturally to a child. It has to be taught. The person who has taught the children is their, in this case, father. They would be better off if he were to be removed as an influence upon their development until they are better able to withstand and reject his negative attitudes. Defendant has deliberately poisoned the minds of his children against the mother, whom they formerly loved and cherished and needed. In the court's opinion, a father who would act in this way represent a grave and persistent danger to the mental and emotional health of his children. That was Judge John H. Gomri. And this was one of the first cases that I dealt with where there was quite a few kids, several kids, and basically when I interviewed them separately with the same questions, they gave me the same, more or less, response. And when I asked them individually, they said basically, well, I asked them, is there anything that you're supposed to tell me? If there's something you're supposed to tell me, please, tell me so that we don't forget about it. And it's amazing that kids will tell you. I was told to tell you this, and I was told to tell you this. Well, okay, now that you told it to me, let's go to some other things. When we look at the types of assessments that are done, I am concerned because often the examiner does not know all the ramifications of how alienation shows up. So for example, if you have, let's say, and we could go to the table here actually, I don't know, there should be, no, not that, it's after that. No. Well, you know what, these are different themes that are used in terms of children being alienated from the parents. Knowing what the themes are, I don't know how to move this thing. Oh, I see, okay, with the button. Yeah, that's why they call me PhD, push here dummy. And all of these are, themes that are used. And you're going to be getting a copy of this. But what I want to, I'm not going to go through these because you'll be getting a written copy of it in any case. What I do want to go into is that unfortunately, many people that do the evaluations, they just ask a couple of questions on the child, to the child, but they don't really go into it. When we look at Claywar and Rivlin, and looking at the second edition, and also by somebody who actually wrote an excellent book on divorce. Her last name is Rohrbach, R-O-H-R-B-A-U-G-H. Also, excellent book. And what we have is that we have the themes. PhD again. I need to get it back. See, that's the beauty of using Dragon. I don't have to type anything. Okay, so for example, the indicator, one of the themes is they're forbidden to love both parents. Do you feel free in your heart to love both of your parents? Is there anything that you are really afraid of that could happen because of the divorce? Now, again, you take a look at the child's answers, and it doesn't have to be the same answer. It could be, Dad said that if I go to live with Mom, that I'll never see him again. And please remember, and I don't know if it was mentioned previously, but please remember, when we take a look at parental alienation, the parent that the child is alienated with, that the child associates with, wants to be with, please remember that child believes that that parent is giving the child conditional love. That child is afraid that if they do not go with what that parent says, the parent is going to basically just write them off. And I've heard it from kids that have said that my mother said that if I don't go and live with her, she's going to get married again and she's going to have other kids and they're going to be my only kids. Now, again, you question kids. They're brought by the parent. I ask the child, I'm not that smart, so I play stupid. And I basically, when the child comes in and I have a meeting one-on-one, I also want to know, how'd you get here? My father brought me, my mother brought me. I said, oh really? Oh, that's okay, I'm happy that they brought you. And what did you talk about in the car? Did you do anything? Were you listening to the music? Well, some children will tell you, this is what we spoke about. And is there anything that, I don't want you to forget anything. I really want you to remember everything. Is there anything that you're supposed to tell me that I should know? And very often, okay, I said, okay, now that you told me that, I thank you for that. And I go on with other questions. I look at the different themes. And again, what we see, there are many ways that a child can be influenced. And again, I'm not going to go through all of them because it'll take us too long, but inappropriate and unnecessary information. Is Mom, Dad upset about anything special you know of? You seem very angry when you mentioned Mom. Do you know why you feel angry? So to the first question, my dad was having an affair while my mom was having me in the hospital. Well, I mean, the kid may have a good memory, but I don't think he has that good memory. You seem very angry when you mentioned Mom. Do you know why you feel angry at her? Mom never wanted me to be born. Dad said she wanted an abortion, but he wouldn't let her do it. Now, why the hell would you let a kid, I mean, for whatever reason, to know these things? But unfortunately, these things do take place. We go to the next one. I don't want to go too far. One parent is seen as a martyr. Is there something that you think could happen that would make the family situation better now? And the child answers, Mom destroyed our family with this divorce. Dad always says that he still loves her and that she can come back. And contradictory statements. They'll say one thing, then they'll say another thing. It can't be both ways. I mean, there could be some ambivalence, but when one thing completely contradicts the other thing, we have a problem. Daddy's a bad man. I never wanted to see him again, but I really love him. I miss him a lot. The kid is confused. And often, the child feels that, he has to take a position. Because if he doesn't take a position, the parent is going to reject or not give him the attention that he ordinarily will get. And these are questions that, again, doing a proper assessment, you could say, what does your mother say about your father? What does your father... But going into it, into more detail, because no, he doesn't say anything, not much, nothing special. But when you go into detail, you get a lot of information. And I almost always get a lot of information to some of these things. Before I forget, I also, I don't want to forget it, when we have to observe the parent with each parent with the children. Ideally, it should be done through closed-circuit television or through a one-way mirror, without the child knowing that they're being evaluated. I remember, and this was a beauty, I remember I was seeing a child with a parent, and the mother said to the son, "Sweetie, I brought you a snack. Would you like a snack, honey?" "No, I'm not hungry, Mom. I also picked up, something that I thought that you would love very, very much. I couldn't, think of it, but I went to Toys R Us. I think it's bankrupt now, but anyway, I was looking, and is there something that you would have liked? I picked up this toy for you. You picked up a toy for me? Yeah, I thought you would like it. But you never pick up any toys for me. That kind of stuff, really could be seen not when the parent and the child are in front of you. Some of the stuff you pick up better when the child does not know that the child is being observed. And again, it's much better that way as well. Now, again, one parent's seen as a martyr. And again, it's the question that would be asked, is there something that you think could happen that would make the family situation better now? Mom destroyed our family with this divorce. Dad always says that he still loves her and that she can come back. Contradictory statements. How do you feel about your dad? And again, the kid, it's fine to have ambivalence. I don't have a problem with that. Many times, children are ambivalent about the parents. So here you have, Daddy's a bad man. I never want to see him again, but I really love him a lot. I really love him. I miss him a lot. And again, you see these things which really tell you a lot about how does the child feel about the parent. And again, how did this weekend go? Does Mom have an opinion about the time you spent at Dad's? When I get home, and again, that's a little bit, to the point, but when I get home, Mom says things like, "Too bad you had to go with your dad this weekend. You missed a great ski trip. I bet you only watch TV." As usual. Mom's right. Dad is boring. That type of thing. But again, going in front of a judge, writing a report, and usually it's a lengthy report, and say, yes, there's incidents of alienation. Gardner has 8 symptoms, and and this kid, showed 3, 4, and 5, or whatever it may be. But when you use these types of things, it's clearer to the judge. It's more definite to the judge. And one thing I also said to myself that I was going to tell you, ideally, not about this, but I'm going to say it now, ideally, there should be, in a high conflict custody case, where there's alienation issues, ideally, and I write it in my report, one judge should be seized with this file. Because these files are voluminous, whatever that word means, they're thick, they're very, very big, and again, to go from one judge, this time it's postponed to another day, it's another judge because this one's in another case right now. It should be, and I do write it in the report, there should be one judge seized with the file, at least. I'm sorry? Yeah, there should be one judge seized with the file, because some of these files are extremely, extremely thick. And to expect a judge to go through, I don't know how many pages, you know, given with I don't know how much notice that they're given, I'd rather have one judge that will be sitting in it. We had one, you know, we were listening before to, you know, the family bridges, and we had, thankfully, I wrote in my report, in one of the cases there, that ideally there should be one judge. That judge, if I could tell you, if we could clone her, I'd make thousands of her. She knew the file, she did a fantastic job, and even at the end, when the mother, the kids did go to family bridges, and even at the end, when the suggestion that I made was that the mother should also go to family bridges, they have the program for the alienating parent as well. It's a shorter period of time, if I remember correctly. But again, she said, if they don't want to come to see me, they don't have to come to see me. And said that right in court. And I looked, you know, and I'd say, wow. And the judge knew exactly what was going on. But ideally, it should be, I mean, it may not be possible, but it should be asked at least, you know, it should be not just a little bit I have today, and then another judge has this, and the judge has, you have the whole picture. Anyway, use of indirect statements quoting brainwashing. How did this weekend go? Does mom have an opinion about the time you spend at dad's? When I get home, mom says things like, too bad you had to go with your, I think I just read that, didn't I? Character assault on target parent. What do you like most being at mom's? Mommy has a lot of boyfriends who sleep over. Daddy says she's and this was a kindergarten kid, the one with the contraceptive. Mom has lots of boyfriends who sleep over. Daddy says she's a whore because the Bible says so. Now, where does a kid get that? Obviously, but again, what do you like about being at your mom? You know, what don't you like? But for the child to make a statement like that, you see, it's not a question, tell me about your dad. How do you like going with your dad? How do you like... Here it's more specific. It deals with the themes that need to be dealt with, and with the themes that a parent often will use to basically to alienate the child. Anxiety arousal. Are there things that are upsetting you right now? Mom and dad, the stepfather, by the way, is called dad. I have to listen when Steve, biological father, telephones us because if he finds out where we live, he might kidnap us. Now, I had a case which was unreal. I was so upset about it. There were 2 kids in the case. Listen to this. This is how I got started. This is many years ago, how I got started in dealing with alienation. The mother, God bless her, took the 2 kids on a Saturday night in her car. They parked in front of their father's home. The father, they waited there. The father gets in the car. He drives off. They follow him. He picked up his girlfriend. The kids saw all this. And there's a tape of it. The kids were in the car. They saw the father getting out of the car. They saw his girlfriend getting into the car. And then, you see, this is what your father does. And the kids turn completely against him. I have a tape. Didn't bring it. I have a tape, no names mentioned, where the father and the kids were talking about it. And the kids were not older kids. They were in grade 4 and 6, if I remember correctly. The swear words that they used to the father taped it all. I have a copy of the tape. It's unreal. Why would the mother do this, for God's sake? What would she get out of it? Except, I'm going to show him, or whatever, to get even, type of thing. Now, again, how do you feel your mom, how do you feel about your mom at this point? And I know mom is bad because daddy says so, and I believe everything he says. My dad never lies to me. Now, one of the things I'm going to interject, I don't know if any of you use it, I do, at times. There is something which is interesting to take a look at. It's called a report card. What you used to get when you were in school. And maybe you still get from your wife or from your husband. But be that as it may, there's something that's called the parent report card. I don't base it only on this, by the way, this is only one thing. I often give it to the child. There's one for children, there's one for adolescents. I often give it to the child to fill out. One for the mother, one for the father. And when they finish one for the mother, I take it, and then they get one for the father to fill out. And I look at the answers that they put down. So for example, understands my moods, gives me hugs, tells me he or she loves me. There's a different one for children and adolescents, by the way. And again, makes good meals, keeps the house, watches TV with me, listens to my problems, blah, 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 all the way down. But you see in severe alienation, even moderate alienation, one is likely to be all the way down A's and B's, and the other one's D's and F's. And again, what I will do is I will not just leave it, I will go to some of the questions, and I will ask them, you know, I see that you got, you know, that you gave your mom an A, and you gave, and why would you give her an A? And, you know, and da-da-da-da. Why would you give him an F type of thing? Because he deserves it. Like, why does he deserve it? Because he deserves it. I mean, there was no answer to that. And again, I don't base it only on this by any means. This is one of the last things I look at. But again, it tells us so much about how the child perceives each of the parents. Okay, let's go on back to here, though. Sometimes children think things may be unfair. Is there anything that you think is unfair? Dad just bought a new car, but mom's poor. He should have given us the money. And again, how does the kid know that mom is poor? How does the kid know all of these things? Scripted views. You said you were confused about the fight. And what really happened? What does dad think happened? I really thought I saw dad's girlfriend hit mom first, but dad says he saw mom's. What the hell are you telling it to the kids? Why do the kids need to know this? But again, you see there that it's a scripted view from what the child said. I heard you become changed and dysfunctional behavior outside the family. I heard you become a really good student, even better than before. Why do you think this has happened? My grades have really improved since mom and dad decided to split. I figured out it's because school is the only place where I can escape. And sometimes you get answers from kids that blow you away. I mean, the answers and some of the insight. And again, you have many questions here. Guilt about own role. Is there anything that you feel guilty about since the whole family change started? I testified against my mom in court and I lied to the judge. And again, I would have continued that. Why did you lie to the judge? Not in a bad way, not in a harsh way. And again, you know, it's very possible, well, because I was told to do it. I'm not going to say that, you know, I can't predict what it was there. And again, nonverbal messages, gestures, and all of these things, you know, they are all part of parental alienation. They're all part of the different themes that the alienating parent used. But again, just because I refuse to go with mom or I refuse to go with dad does not mean that I am alienated. You need to know what is going through the child's mind, you know, that he does not want to go. And with these types of things, you know, child as spy or conduit of information. Is there anything you've done during your parents' separation that makes you feel not as good as you'd like about yourself? I brought mom some of dad's business receipts to help her in court because he says he has no money. Now let me tell you a case that took place many years ago. The two kids were alienated, one of the early cases. the two kids were alienated against their father. They had to go, the court ordered that they had to go and see the father. Listen to what they did. They went into the bathroom. This is a true story. They went into the father's bathroom. They opened up the medicine cabinet, which was there. They took the father's Pepto-Bismol, and they went down to the laundry room. And they took some bleach, and they poured it into the Pepto-Bismol. My name is Abe, but people do confuse me. Okay. They took the bleach. They put it into the Pepto-Bismol. He had to be hospitalized. And when the kids, one other thing they did that time is that they sat on his cushions and they turned over the cushion and they slashed it and then put it back. In any case, when I met with the kids and I found out what was going on, they started laughing. It serves him right. He deserves it. He cheated on our mother, type of thing. So again, you know, child as spy or conduit of information, we talked about that. Age inappropriate statements. They sometimes, oh, let me give you another one, now that I'm thinking of it. I remember a case, actually I think it was with Judge Gomery, also with him, where the kids were told to go into their father's, father was a multi-millionaire, to go into the father's home, go into his bedroom, and he has a desk there. Open the drawer, usually he keeps it in the second drawer on the side, and whatever, anything that says bank, put it under your shirt, go to the window, and I'm going to be waiting outside and throw it to me. Throw it to me. The kids were so alienated against their father, the judge was absolutely fuming at the mother who told them to do it, and basically really blasted her. But the kids did not want, this is going back years ago, the kids did not want to stay with their father or even visit the father, because we know things that, one of the kids told the judge, we know things about our father that you don't know about. We don't want to go back there. And the judge ordered, yes, you will have to go and with your father, and you're also going to be going to therapy. They refused to go. And then it went back to court, but mother got them to go to deprogram them to that extent. So again, you know, could you explain how your stepfather became your real father? My mom and dad got married, had me, and then divorced. They, mother and stepfather that is, told me that now I have a real father. Can you tell me how I got born again? You know, the fact of the matter is that what the parents are telling them, and they use all of these themes in the first column in terms of that. And child statements mirror those of, why do you think your father's trying so hard to make sure he has more time with you? And this is not asked by the parent, this is asked by myself, or by the therapist, or whoever it's working with. Dad doesn't really love me, or wants me to live with him. He just wants custody to hurt mommy. And again, you know, we have that often. There was a lady with 4, I don't want to go into the specifics, had a few daughters. I meet with the daughters. Each one, I saw them separately. Initially, I saw them together to make them comfortable. Then I saw them separately. And it was mind-boggling. The kids told me what their complaints were about their father, identically, using the same words, the same order. I don't want to give too, anyway, the same order. The judge found that the children were alienated, the judge found that the father had a job that involved, how should I put it, questioning people, let's leave it like that, and influencing people. And the father gave full custody to the mother, who basically did, without going into details, I don't think it's being done anymore, but also did, opened up a center for children who were alienated in the United States, based on what she learned, and apparently she was quite successful for the time that she did it. And again, we have brain twirling, confusion, anxiety. Again, on the one, if they tell you, some of them from, column A, ask them questions about it. Just don't accept it. Ask them questions, go into detail, and in whatever report that you write, please, if you're a mental health professional or whatever, if you're doing that, please include the questions and the answers. 10 hours, you said? What, you want to get rid of me or something? Okay. So in any case, you can't win. Okay, so in any case, these are aspects that basically we need to take into account. Now, when we take a look at what goes on when we have alienation, what we also need to take into account is that 80% of alienated children, 80% according to Claywar and Rivlin, said that they want the alienation to stop and wanted people to recognize, they themselves, they wanted people to recognize that there was alienation. Not that I'm going to tell you, it's not coming from me, it must have come from him, so nobody's going to, my parents will not get angry at me. That was number one. We also have to take into account Amy Baker, who's obviously well known, and she deserves to be well known, found that alienated children did not want the parents to walk away from them. They don't want it. And again, conditional love is one reason why children will become alienated. They're afraid that if I don't go, Dad will or Mom will always be there for me. But if I don't go, she's not going to be there with me. We need to take that into account as well. It's very, I guess, unfortunate that sometimes, and I want to mention this, you have a child's attorney. We have, at least in Canada, you have a child's attorney, you have the Office of the Children's Lawyer in Ontario, and please understand, when a child has his own lawyer, the lawyer will let's put it this way, in Quebec, where I come from, not originally, but in Quebec, there's a child's attorney. The focus of the child's attorney is to stand up for the children, to express to the court the children's wishes, the children's perceptions. In Ontario, you have the Office of the Children's Lawyer, and the purpose of the many purposes to it, but one of the things that they do is that they state, they don't give an opinion, they're there to say, what is the child's perspective? How does the child see it, etc. And in some cases, and I'm thinking of a couple of people in particular, when the children are given that sense of power and reinforced by the alienating parent, and that lawyer fights in court for what the kids want, even though they don't want to see one parent, they've been alienated, it becomes quite problematic. Again, I recently had to do an assessment And it was interesting because I was told, I don't know how many letters I got from the lawyers, you are to do a voice of the child assessment. Not the parent, you don't have to interview the parents. It's the child's perception. And it's how the child sees the situation, what the child desires. And I'm not saying that that's bad, you know. However, just because the child says X doesn't mean that that's the way it should be. Why is the child saying X? And I'm not sure as to whether in reports like that they would say that. However, what we need to take into account is that when an assessment, for those of you that may be attorneys, when an assessment is requested and there's an issue of alienation, it's not enough for the person who is doing the assessment to know what parental alienation is in a general way. It's basically to know how to evaluate whether the child really is alienated, by using what themes, how is it happening. And again, we have situations where the kid has been alienated. Let's say the kid is 15 years old. We had one in Vancouver a while ago. I don't want to go into all the detail. The judge was fantastic. I wanted to write in after a second a post report to say that they should clone this judge. Wrote 135 or 140 pages about this child, despite the fact that the child was 15 already. Despite the fact, said that the kid has been alienated and there should be therapy for the child to basically be reintegrated with the alienated parent. Sometimes that doesn't happen, unfortunately. Sometimes the child is that age, you know, you can't do anything, you know, there's nothing to do. 5 more years left, okay. So anyway, when we take I'll make you happy. So when you take a look at what happens when you're doing an alienation assessment, it's not enough to know what the difference between estrangement and alienation is. You need to use the themes that alienators use. You need to use questions tapping each of the themes to make it thorough, to make it not just, you know, happenstance or whatever. It really has to be done well. And one last thing, and I'll leave you with that. Ideally, in an alienation case, and I don't know how the situation is here, but in an alienation case, there should be one judge. Because it becomes, and I mentioned it before, because it becomes so, to start all over from scratch with everything, it really is very difficult for the adults. It's very difficult for everybody. Ideally, there should be one. I mean, that's my recommendation. I can't put it on anybody. But again, there should be one judge. And as I mentioned, you know, you just take a look at that judgment from Judge Gomery, who recognized that hatred is not an emotion that comes naturally to a child. It has to be taught. And I do believe that. The person who taught the child, etc., is, you know, the alienating parent. Okay, so that's basically, you know, what I wanted to say. Tomorrow I'll be speaking for 3 hours.